Welcome to the Lighthouse Podcast, a resource created by Lighthouse Family Retreat to strengthen families that are living through childhood cancer. You will hear stories from families, educational information on childhood cancer, and most importantly, we will encourage your family during this journey. Hello friends, I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. It is now December. Today is actually December 1st, so we're kicking off the month and we're super excited because this is one of our favorite months. We love Christmas and December. So if you're following along, our Advent calendar, the Lighthouse Advent calendar, started just 2 days ago on the 29th, if you were able to order one and get one in your house. And today's activity, I love this. As a family, pick your favorite Christmas treat recipe. Christy, favorite Christmas treat recipe?
By far, my mom's Swedish butter cookies.
Oh my goodness.
They're not easy to make. I make them once a year, and I don't share them.
Oh, wow.
I really don't share them.
I know, because I've never had one of those. You've not brought any of those to the office.
I've never brought them in.
Oh, my goodness.
Now that I've said it, now I probably have to do that
Yeah,
this year.
I think you do. I think I'm going to be expecting to see at least one or two of those. For us, our favorite Christmas treat recipe, and we do it every year, and we only do it at this time of year, is this English toffee. That we make, this Christmas toffee, and it's a family recipe, although it's not that tricky. It's just toffee, but we all do it as a family. We're up late, we're cooking it, we're mixing it, we're making it, and then we give it out at Christmas.
So you don't do what I do and keep it for yourself. You actually share.
We make a bunch of it and we give it out
That's
at
more
Christmas.
The spirit of Christmas, probably.
It is
than
a little
mine.
bit. It is a little bit. So that's one of our favorite treats. So we're really glad you guys are here with us today. We're following up on our episode last week with Stephanie Craig. So if you guys are just jumping in and starting here, you want to go back 1 week and listen to the first episode, because these do kind of tie together. And so we want you to really be able to get the full context of what you're going to hear today. But we're going to talk a little bit more about anxiety and some different aspects of it, and maybe get into a little bit more tactical of how we deal with it. So let's join in on the conversation with Stephanie. We're back with Stephanie. Thanks again for sitting down with us. I'm excited to dig in a little bit more into this kind of the maintenance phases now in this episode we're going to get. We talked about kind of how to deal with it in the urgent, in the moment, but now getting into this maintenance. And it kind of falls under this umbrella, Stephanie, of what we call self-care. And there's a lot of different definitions, and I want you to touch on what maybe is a healthy definition of what self-care is. Before we do that, though, when you hear the term self-care, sometimes that can kind of get put into a category of, oh, that's for my wife, or that's for the females in the room.
Or that it's not a mental thing. It's more like, oh, that's just curling up on the couch doing your nails. I think it gets almost a bad rap.
Yeah, and just the anxiety in general for guys. I want to make sure that the men that are listening understand, and for the women listening, that there's an anxiety level that comes with the man as well, and a lot of times it manifests itself differently, or at least men think it does. When I've experienced anxiety, I've often thought there's something wrong. I'm sick. I'm having a heart attack. There's something physically. It's not anxiety. It's it's a heart thing. I point to the physical, but that's not the case. It just manifests itself different. But this is as much a conversation for the men as it is for the women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the kids.
Right. And the kids, because you were talking about that offline with Carter.
Yes. Years off treatment, we had some issues, and he had some panic attacks based on something that happened years before. And you think that because everybody's fine and they're walking around and talking and acting fine, I've learned that you kind of have to dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
So it's a whole family thing.
So Stephanie, how do we define, what's the best definition for self-care?
Well, this is going to sound pretty obvious, but it ultimately really is about taking good care of yourself so that you're in a healthy space to live life and show up to take care of the people you love. So it's very simple, but not just pampering.
Yes.
Right? We're not just talking about, I just need a little time to myself, or I need to put my feet up. That might be part of it, but it's a little more holistic than that.
Yeah, that's not just it. Not that doesn't fit into the umbrella, but I want to make sure that we don't just do just those things. We don't just sit on the couch and put our feet up and put a movie on and eat bonbons, popcorn, and do our nails, right?
Right.
because that's what I do all the time.
Yeah.
That's how I handle anxiety.
And that's fine for you. Let's also just address, too, that families whose children are going through cancer treatment, this is not in the top 100 things that you're going to put on your list for a bunch of reasons. One, it just sounds selfish, or it feels selfish. It feels self-indulgent. Your time is super limited. You're not putting your mask on first. You are completely 100% about caring for that child, and then if you have time, the other kids in your family. So I think we need to address that too, how hard it is, and maybe give some ideas or just convince people how much it's worth it to take care of yourself, especially when you're in a crisis situation.
Sure. I think it's human instinct, and I would say parent instinct most of the time, to put ourselves after our children. And I think we can get a little bit stuck there because a rundown parent is not always going to show up with their best face on.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily going to be game ready. And we can't always help it when life runs us down. It just happens. It's not like we go out looking for it. But just to remember and to remind ourselves, there is nothing selfish or self-indulgent about taking care of yourself, because when you're not taking care of yourself, you really can't do a great job at taking care of other people. So I would say there are some things that are way more basic that are part of self-care other than things we would define as indulgent or relaxing. I mean, we're talking about just trying to get sleep, a decent amount of sleep every day, because our brain does not function properly if we're not getting enough sleep. It could be drinking enough water during the day so we're not dehydrated. Eating something nutritious, or just trying to eat some regular meals throughout the day. Those are things we would not normally put into a category of self-care, but they certainly belong there, because those are the things that go by the wayside.
Right.
Some of the first things when we're stressed to go by the wayside are nutrition and sleep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and these are, they're simple analogies, but I just think they're so true, and maybe a little even cliche, but you have a car. If you want your car to last, right, and if you want it to run, you've got to stop and fill its tank with gas. So you need fuel, right? So you've got to have that fuel to get where you're going. And beyond that, if you want the car to last and keep going, you've got to do maintenance on it. You've got to do the regular checkups, and you've got to do the oil changes and all the different things, or else the car's only going to last so long. Our bodies aren't too different that we've got to do the certain things that are going to give us the fuel, whether that's the sleep and, good diets and different stuff like that. And then we've got to care for ourselves on a regular basis, or else we're not going to be in good shape to care for those in our family. And I even think about like an athlete, like a professional athlete. They can't just let everything go to the wayside and then show up at the game or the next season and expect to actually be, a superstar and do what they're intended to do and do it well. They've got to train, and they've got to take care of themselves, and they got to. We're no different. We're just parents, right? We're not the quarterback of the football team, or we're not a car, but we're a parent in a family where if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be able to fulfill our role in that circle of who we have to care for. And I think that's so important that we've got to think about how do we do those things to maintain ourselves and take care of ourselves. And I think for a lot of our folks that are listening, the challenge is, where do we do that? How do we fit that in with everything in the schedule that we've got going on? How do they figure out how to make sure that still happens?
So I have a strategy that might be helpful for mapping this out for families. So first of all, what I would say is there are several areas that I think you can kind of do a self-care assessment, or just kind of how am I doing? Mm-hmm. Check in with yourself. And that would include how much sleep you're getting. It would include whether you're getting any nutritious food and enough water in a day. It would include, are you taking care of your physical health? Are you going to the doctor if you need to? Are you taking regular medications for maintenance of your health? Are you taking vitamins? Those sorts of things. Are you engaged in some kind of spiritual community or practice, whatever that looks like for you? So being able to have some hope infused in daily life is really, really important, especially when we're walking through really hard things. Are you connected to anybody socially? So those would be some of the things that I would say we need to be thinking about. And when your child is in treatment is not a time to be thinking you're going to do some kind of major life overhaul and be able to get all of those things ordered just right. Because as you said, who has time for that? So I think something you could do is just check in, ask yourself, how am I doing in those areas? And then really notice if there's one that stands out to you. So is there just one that I can work on?
It's just doing the honest checklist and writing those things on a piece of paper and just saying, how am I doing? Right? Good, needs work, right? Or however you want to clarify it. But then narrow it down and what is one you can work? Is that what you're saying?
Just
keep it simple, right? Don't get overwhelmed and create more anxiety by looking at the list going, oh my gosh.
Now I'm failing at this.
Yeah.
Right, how can I ever do this?
Right.
I don't have time for that. Okay, so pick one. Pick one thing. If one of them just resonates or stands out to you, or you look at it and you think, oh, if I could just do that a little bit more, I think that would really be life-giving for me. I think that could really help refill my tank. So pick one thing and then try to come up with one practical action step that you could do for a month.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say sleep, because I think that's probably a huge one for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what I was even going to ask of the list. Are there any that are there more important from a health perspective, are more important? Is it sleep, or even like just diet, or making sure you have had a regular check with your doctor? I mean, are there any that are like, hey, prioritize these?
Well, I feel like they're all important, but I definitely feel like sleep and what we're putting into our body is huge daily for our ability to think clearly and to function physically. So the other ones are important, but those, if we're not getting those right, it's hard to even have the clarity of mind to say, oh, I think I need to go to the doctor. I think I need to reach out and have a conversation with a friend.
Yeah, that's good.
So a practical action step that you could do for sleep is, let's say you're getting, 5 or less hours of sleep per day. Well, what we know is most people need somewhere over 7 in order for their body and brain to be functioning at optimum level, or even just at a healthy level. And that might seem overwhelming, but let's just say you're getting less than 5, so the goal would be, let's try to map out how I can get to bed so that I can get 7 hours of sleep. Maybe you don't start with getting 7, maybe you move from 4 to getting 5.5.
Right.
And
you know what? Baby steps.
5 hours is more.
Yeah.
It really is. It makes a difference.
Right.
It's not, the goal is not to shame yourself.
Right.
It's just to celebrate.
Yeah.
I've set a goal. I'm moving in the right direction. I'm getting more sleep. That's helpful. And then just focus on just that for an entire month of mapping out, okay, I could go to bed at this time, get up at this time. That would be 7 hours. I'm just going to do that every day for the next month. And that is how I'm going to take care of myself. Right
and
now.
I love that, to focus for a month, because that gives you an opportunity to establish a new habit, right? There's plenty of stuff out there on 21 days to a new habit, whatever all the different stuff is, but a month gives you time to you have time to build that in, to create momentum, then to take on the next one, right? Don't just do it for a week. Try it for a month, stick with it for a month, commit to it for a month, then that makes it easier to take on the next one the next month. You get momentum.
Exactly. And I would encourage people, use reminders for that entire month.
Yeah.
Because for us to get that habit and to get that new trail blazed in the mind, it really does take consistent daily change.
Right.
And most of us will forget about it after the first day.
Yes.
So I encourage people to use reminders in your phone, alarms in your phone, Post-it notes. Move it all around. I say make the alarms at different times of day. Make them say something different, because we get blind. Move your Post-its around. Use a different color. Use a different marker to get your attention. And just and none of that. Those are all things that really can be set up in about 5 minutes. Right? We're not talking about some kind of big elaborate system of reminding yourself. It can be very, very simple.
Right, because nobody has time for that.
No.
Nobody has time for elaborate anything.
No, who's got time for that?
No.
Right, you're trying to sleep. You don't have time for an elaborate reminder system. So you just write sleep on Post-it note, and you stick it somewhere. And like 5 days later, you just move that Post-it note somewhere else where you're going to see it. And 5 days later, you move it somewhere else. And it keeps it on your mind for a month until you really feel like you're getting somewhere with it.
And you probably need that amount of time to start to feel the impact of it, right? You can't say, oh, I slept 7 hours for the last 2 nights. I didn't notice a difference. You probably need, multiple days and weeks to get into a rhythm and see the impact of that on your body.
It will take some time. Sleep is interesting, though. Sometimes if you just get a couple of good nights of sleep, you really can start to feel, oh, I want to do that more.
Yeah.
I actually thought a little more clearly today, or I responded a little less irritably today. But yes, a month is certainly going to give you more of a glimpse of long-term change.
And we talked at the very beginning about how this is for dads and this is for kids. And since we know that childhood cancer is a whole family experience, I think we should talk a little bit about helping each other, how we help each other and teach, we're teaching our kids and we're teaching them life skills because we're not always going to be in this space of childhood cancer. So this is a life skill thing. This is something you and I need to work on.
Right.
And I already have my plan.
I'm not surprised.
Because I'm multitasking and I'm thinking about my self-care. But we need to help others in our family find self-care and somehow explain to them how it's important that we can trade off. If I'm getting 7 hours, maybe then Eric's going to go for a run, or our spouse is going to go for a run, or our kids need extra time, or whatever that means. Mm-hmm. I think that we need to kind of sit down as a group or just one-on-one and figure out because our self-needs are, I think, very personal. Mine are working out and sleep. If I had to just take some off the list, I love them all, but if I had to just pick, but that not necessarily wouldn't work for someone else in my family.
Absolutely. I think there's something really connecting about just sitting down as a family. And again, this doesn't have to be long. We're not talking about a 30-minute sit down. Right. It could be 10 minutes of just sitting down and saying, everybody, let's go around. How are you doing?
Yeah.
It could be thumbs up, thumbs down. Mm-hmm. You could pick one word. Maybe it's a sentence. And then what do you need? Right. What do you need to feel supported right now? And you can give everybody a heads up. Today we're talking about self-care. So when we ask the what do you need question, what's one thing right in these categories that you need more of, and let's map out how we're going to help you get it.
That's great.
And it might be that your kids just need a reminder that every day at 4 they're going to take a little downtime and they're going to turn on some music and they're going to draw or something in their room. And then like you said, maybe that's every day somebody's going for a run and it's happening at this time and the family just maps out, okay, it's run time. And we're not going to talk to this parent right now. We're going to ask the other parent. And vice versa. It's bedtime. It's bedtime for this parent right now, right? This parent's the night owl. This parent's the early to bed parent. Okay, this parent's going to bed. This parent is the one you go to at that time. And those things, they really can be fairly simply mapped out. And it can make a huge difference for the whole family. And there's just health in asking everybody to ask themselves, what do I need?
Right.
And how can I get that need met? And then beyond that, how can I help other people I love get their needs met?
I think that's great. Yeah, you're teaching your kids how to, at an early age, ask those questions and think about managing anxiety. We didn't do that when I was a kid.
No.
And that's not my parents' fault. My parents just didn't know. They wasn't on their radar. And so to be able to do that with our kids and to parent while you still have kids in the home, doing those kinds of exercises, they're pretty simple, just asking those kind of questions, but it just is teaching our kids to think about things that they're not just learning in school to do stuff like that. So I think that's a great skill.
I do feel like we need to touch on one thing with regards to self-care. There are forms of self-care that might help with the anxiety or the stress short term, but might not be healthy long term. And you had talked to me once about how some things can create secondary problems.
Yes.
So I think, honestly, to be fair, I think we need to touch on that because I think that's probably something that a lot of people struggle with.
Sure. I think we all have ways of coping with stress, and anxiety is just an intense form of stress. So we have ways to cope that are healthy, that make us feel better and calmer and alleviate some of our stress that don't cause us secondary problems. And that would be getting enough sleep, maybe taking a walk, again, taking time to draw in your room, calling someone, asking for help. Those are all things that would fall in the healthy category. The unhealthy category are going to be things that you do that actually work. They calm you down, they help, but then they cause other problems. Yeah. So some of those for adults might be consuming alcohol and doing that as a way to calm, which in and of itself, probably not a problem for most people. But when you start connecting alcohol to emotions and calming, then that may become the go-to every time you're stressed, and then that can turn into an issue. I think adults and kids can connect food
that was
comfort,
the one I was thinking of, yes.
And unintentionally create some issues there around going to food every time, you don't feel comfortable. Other times it can be things like shopping, right? You get a little high from, ooh, let's treat ourselves. And like we had a hard day, so we're gonna, shop. And, nothing wrong in and of itself, but when connected to emotions, and every time that becomes your go-to, now you've got some other kinds of problems going on. So it's important to sort out which of the things that I'm doing are helpful but are not causing me secondary problems, and which ones of these are causing me a whole other set of problems. And now I'm having to have a bunch of conversations with somebody in my family about why I keep doing that thing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about, because we mentioned it earlier, getting into the maintenance mode of how we deal with some stuff, and mindfulness is one of the tactics, I think.
Yes.
Define that, and
I love to talk about mindfulness.
And let's talk about what that is and how it works.
Okay, mindfulness is basically the idea of staying in the here and now, and really trying as much as we can to focus our thoughts on what we're doing right now at any given moment. So we can trick ourselves sometimes into thinking we can accomplish more if we think about the future while we're in the present. But the truth is, now is really the only moment we're in. And what ends up happening is we're stressing either about things that happened in the past, or we're stressing about things that are coming down the road in the future, and we're actually giving up our nows over and over and over again, thinking that we're being more productive by not just being present in the moment.
This whole concept just intrigues me, because everything you just said is the opposite of me. Like, Chris and I were talking last night and sitting here, and I said to him, I'll be honest with you, like, we're talking about the podcast tomorrow. I'm already thinking about what I need to do in the next 20 minutes. And if I don't do that, then I'm going to be late for the next thing. And I'm supposed to be making half of dinner, and I'm over here. And it is a struggle for me. I love the concept, and I've been trying. I feel like practice this is something that is good to practice at. Because and we don't, honestly, as a culture, we don't celebrate mindfulness. We celebrate multitasking. How many things can you do, or can you be doing while you're doing something else? Can you be planning the next 5 things? And I love the idea of trying to bring it back down to just right then. And I've been trying, and I've been practicing, but it's not intuitive to me.
Talk about how you've been practicing, because I was really fascinated, because when she explained it, and you got into it a little bit, it's focusing, it's the practice of finding one thing just to focus on, right? And doing that one thing and eliminating all the other things from your brain so you can calm yourself, right? And Christy explained what she's been doing that gives her, it's her mindfulness.
Okay, this is very
activity.
silly. This was not a shared story, but it will be now. So I don't do mindfulness. I do 27 plans. Like, I plan Christmas in July, and that's kind of how my world works. But okay, this is silly. Don't laugh. So I make apple pie. I just love to make it, and I usually give it away. And it's something I do every fall. I give it to my best friend on her birthday. I make it for staff. I don't know. I just love it. But I made it's a rule for me, or like a method, that when I make apple pie, this is the only thing I do this for, that is all I do at the moment. And it's almost, I think about who I'm making it for. When I make it for my best friend for her birthday, I pray for her while I'm making it. The other day I made it for staff. We had like a staff lunch, and I thought about everybody on staff. And it takes me, 40 minutes to do this process. And it's very methodical. There's a lot of very slow chopping. And I do it all from, by hand. And I think about my mom. And she gave me the recipe. And I can't even read the card anymore because it's all splotched and has all my stuff all over it. And it's the one thing I do in my life that it calms me down, but I also use it as a time to focus on who I'm making it for and why I'm making it for that person and the role they have in my life. That is my one attempt at mindfulness. But I do it, I think, with the pie pretty successfully. Yeah,
but you're not thinking about the next 5 things you're doing, or 10 things you're doing. You're thinking about making the apple pie.
It makes me really happy, because I really do think about whoever I'm making it for. And just, it's kind of a methodical, it does calm you down. And it just, I don't know, that's just my one attempt at mindfulness.
When she explained that, that's when it really rang in for me. Like, I don't do that enough with things, but I know when I've done that, I find myself to calm down, because I'm focused on that one thing in the here and now, not the 10 other things that are going on in my world. And I loved the idea of the apple pie, right? So
I love that. I love it. And that's evidence for you that you can do it.
I guess.
Right. Everybody's got an apple pie in their world somewhere, right? There's something like the apple pie that they can do. Maybe it's not 40 minutes. Maybe it's just 10 minutes, right? But it's something that they can do in their day that they just spend that 10 minutes doing. That's the idea of mindfulness, right?
And the idea of mindfulness is to build on that and to try to spend as much of your mental energy during the day just going through the day doing what you're doing.
Doing the one thing that you're doing.
Whatever you're doing. So if I'm driving, instead of getting to where I'm going and not remembering the drive, because I've been stressing the whole time about something that's happening tomorrow, instead actually paying attention to the color of the car and the trees next to you, and I'm slowing down, and now I'm speeding up, and how does the air conditioning feel? And a big part of mindfulness is using your senses. So it's describing your environment to yourself through your senses. So I see a red car. I hear the sound of my air conditioning. I feel the cool air on my face. I smell my car freshener. I feel the seat touching my leg.
Yeah.
Or here's how the steering wheel feels to me. And to just really be thinking about your senses, doing whatever you're doing. And really, ultimately, the goal of mindfulness is not so much about, let's not focus on everything else. It's about just being fully present in whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
This is where I am. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to immerse myself in that in all the ways that I can.
Yeah. So when I hear mindfulness, it's like taking grounding, right? That we talked about the previous episode. It's taking that to the next level, right? Because the grounding was in the moment. This is now saying, all right, now how do we practice that throughout the day, in our everyday, right?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. I can give you a great example of mindfulness when you wake up in the morning and the contrast between mindfulness and multitasking.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say in the multitasking world, you wake up, you get out of bed, and as you're getting out of bed, you're lining up the 15 things that you've got to do in the next 3 hours, okay? And you are thinking about that the whole time you're brushing your teeth. You're thinking about that the whole time you take a shower. You get to the kitchen, you're making toast, right? You get out the butter, you're putting the butter on the toast, but the whole time you're making the toast, you're thinking about this difficult conversation that you have to have, and it's got to happen 4 hours from now. Okay, and so you've made the toast and then you're eating your toast, thinking about that the whole time. So how do you feel while you're doing toast when you're thinking about the difficult conversation you have to have 3 hours from now?
That kind of sounds like my normal morning.
So
this is a bad thing.
Enjoyable toast.
Not very enjoyable toast, that's right. Okay, so scenario 2, you wake up, you take a breath, you just think, this is the day I have. I'm going to try to approach this day and show up as the best version of myself that I know to be. And now I'm going to put my feet on the floor. Yeah. The floor is cold. All right, the floor is cold. I'm going to walk, I'm going to take my shower. The water's warm. Here's what the shampoo smells like. Eventually, you walk to the kitchen. You're getting the things out. You're getting the butter out. You're buttering your toast. And the whole time, you're just thinking, I love the smell of this butter. And oh, that bread, it's so soft. I love how it smells.
That toast sounds so much better than the other toast.
I'm going to butter my toast.
I bet it tastes better than the other toast, too.
Okay, and then you're eating your toast. How is your toast?
Way better.
And how stressed are you now 15, 30 minutes into your morning?
Yeah.
Because most of the everyday things that we do are not really that stressful.
Yeah.
Some of them are. And when they are, it's fine for us to admit it's stressful. We need to show up in that moment. We need to manage our stress. Be honest, it was stressful. But most of the tiny moments throughout our day are not that stressful. We are inviting stress into those moments because we are thinking about other moments that are going to be stressful or have already been stressful, and we're bringing that into the present.
Yeah.
So mindfulness is really just sort of sweeping out the past and the future and creating some space for the present moment.
Yeah.
And just doing that again and again. You notice that thought coming in from the future, you gently dismiss it, and come back and start describing to yourself whatever you're doing right now and just try to be present with your senses. Yeah,
that's
and you do it over and over and over again, and when it starts, it's hundreds of times.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Hundreds of times,
yeah.
right? You'll do it for 3 seconds. I had a day where I was like, oh, I haven't been practicing mindfulness today. I'm at a stoplight, okay? And I'm like, oh, I need to start practicing mindfulness. I'm really going to do that now. And then 30 minutes later, I realized I got halfway through the left turn and then started worrying about something else. So it really just, it takes time and commitment and habit, and you don't have to shame yourself when you don't do it right. Any moments of mindfulness throughout your day, it's an improvement over what we normally do.
So you hear that? Any moments. It's not all the time. Any moments. Yes.
And if there was a way to get you to just like narrate my mornings with your very calm voice, I think that would help a lot.
Because you did walk through the toasting very calmly.
And I was like, if I just could hear your voice walking me through, Christy, just get out of bed and put your feet. I think that is maybe would be helpful. Probably not so much for you.
You would be amazed that you actually could narrate that. It sounds so good that I would do it, but actually you can do that. You can do that for yourself.
Narrate your own calm.
I think that would help me, though, to say it out loud. Because then if you're saying it out loud, or even in your head out loud, you're not letting the other voices come in.
It is. It's just like when we talked about before, distraction. It's healthy distraction. And when you're in, mindfulness is all about observe your environment through your senses, describe it to yourself, and then try to fully participate without judgment. Okay, that's another thing about mindfulness. Without judgment in the present moment.
Yeah.
It's not a failure, or it just is.
That's right.
Right. You just do your best.
Yeah, life happens. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. But the best you can do is show up as yourself, handle it the best way you know how in the moment. And even when you don't handle it the best way you know how in the moment, okay, observe. I didn't handle that very well. Okay, moving on. I'll try again.
Yeah.
I love that. Stephanie, you are so wise, and we are so lucky. I've loved talking to you about anxiety and quick ways to deal with things in the moment, and then long-term ways. I think it's going to help a lot of parents, a lot of kids, a lot of families. And again, I wish I'd met you 10 years ago. It would have helped me.
Thank you so much. And I enjoy it.
I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing more from Stephanie in the future, because she just has a lot to offer us as we're navigating taking care of ourselves and our families. And hey, that includes Christmas, y'all. Don't forget to take time in this season specifically to have a little bit of space for yourself. And you know what? If you know someone who could benefit from listening to Stephanie and listening to our podcast, please share it and take the time also to rate and review as well. That would help us out. Grateful you joined us today, and we will see you later on the next